What's up, everyone? Mr. NoobTube Gamer. Today we're playing Battlefield 4 in the year 2021. In this video, we're going to talk about the state of the game 8 years later, and if it's still worth your time after all this time. And of course, Battlefield 4 today is a lot different from what Battlefield 4 was when it came out. Especially at launch, it was a broken mess. Probably one of the worst launches in video game history. Anyone that was around back then knows exactly what I'm talking about. So many, the bugs and glitches and the crashes, it was practically unplayable. And it took about 6 months before the game was in a good state. And of course, we kept getting new content over the years. Even after the DLC content came out, we got free updates and free maps. And throughout the years, Battlefield 4 still maintained a very healthy player base, even after Battlefield 1, even after Battlefield 5, even to this day, 8 years later. Battlefield 4 is still a very popular game, whether we're talking about the PC version, the PS4 version, or the Xbox One version. I think there are still players on the PS3 and 360, but obviously most of the players will be on the newer version of the game, where you can have 64 players on console, and the graphics are a little bit better. Yeah, I remember Battlefield 4. It felt like such a huge upgrade to me, because I bought the game on the PlayStation 4, and I had Battlefield 3 on the PS3. It felt like a huge next-gen upgrade, even though Battlefield 3 and 4, if you played on PC, they're very similar experiences, but on console, Battlefield 4 feels like a huge improvement over 3, especially having 64 players in Conquest. And you guys will notice that I'm using Team Deathmatch footage for this gameplay commentary because Conquest is just so fucking long. I love Conquest, but for the purpose of YouTube, it's a lot easier to do Team Deathmatch, even though in this particular server, the tickets are just so fucking high. Like, I don't understand the point of having high ticket values in Battlefield Team Deathmatch. There's so many servers that do that, where you have matches lasting 20-25 minutes. It's like, what's the fucking point? Team Deathmatch is supposed to be like a quick thing, but when the ticket value is at like 200, 250, it just drags on and on and on. So, I mean, I actually don't like Team Deathmatch in Battlefield 4 in 2021, just for that reason alone, but Team Deathmatch is actually pretty good as far as like the actual maps are concerned. I actually love TDM in Battlefield 4. It's probably my favorite Team Deathmatch in the Battlefield series, but that doesn't say a lot because Battlefield is really not known for TDM. But I will say that I actually enjoy Battlefield 4's Team Deathmatch and the Close Quarters DLC in Battlefield 3. I think Battlefield 4 actually did it really well. I just don't like how the custom servers have their really high tickets, because 25 minutes for a game of TDM is kind of fucking ridiculous, but it's still a lot of fun. So Team Deathmatch is still there. People still play Rush a little bit, but not too much. Rush really didn't catch on in BF4 and the other Battlefield games as much as it did in the Bad Company series. So yeah, Rush is still alive, but it's not as lively as it was back in the day. Conquest, obviously, you will have no problem finding a game of Conquest because that is like the bread and butter of the Battlefield series. Yeah, plenty of full Conquest servers. Think of any time, like 3 o'clock on a Monday morning. You think, okay, that time, nobody's going to be online, especially an 8-year-old game. But no, Battlefield 4, you'll find a full Conquest server no matter what time of the day that you're playing. And I remember looking at the server browser, you have Japanese servers, you have servers in Australia, so it doesn't really matter what region you live in, you should have no problem finding a game of Battlefield 4, especially when we're talking about Conquest. So yeah, Conquest is still alive, even with the DLC, the premium DLC, there are plenty of full DLC servers in Battlefield 4, while in Battlefield 3, on PC, I could only find one server that had the premium content in rotation. So Battlefield 4 definitely has a lot more going for it in 2021 than, let's say, Battlefield 3, even though Battlefield 3 has a really strong modding community. You know, the Venice Unleashed mod just came out, a nice little framework for creators to develop their own mods. You have 100-player servers and shit like that, but I think Battlefield 4 still, as far as like the player base, as far as the community on PC, is still very strong in 2021. It's probably the strongest out of all the older Battlefield games. But if you don't own the game right now, I would recommend that you check out the PC version, because I did play the game on PS4 for many years, and then I got the game on PC because I'm subscribed to EA Play, and I picked the game up on PC a few months ago. Check it out. And I was amazed. I mean, it was an amazing experience, even in 2021. I mean, when you max out your settings on Ultra, 1440p, and you got that keyboard and mouse accuracy, it's a whole nother experience than what you've had on console. So I would recommend that you do check the game out on PC if you haven't played it on PC before. If you have a good PC now, but you didn't back in 2013, and you're curious to see what it's like on PC, it's just like, it's on a whole fucking different level. I could definitely recommend it. I wouldn't recommend like picking up the PS3 version or the 360 version at this point, because it really is a gimped experience on those older consoles, and it really isn't the same. I mean, the graphics, the game looks like shit, and it plays like shit when you have these big giant maps that are clearly made for 64 players, and you can only have, I don't even remember, is it 24 players or 32 players? I think it's actually 24. Yeah, that's not a lot of players for these maps. So yeah, I would just stay away completely from the PS3 and 360 version if you can. And even if you own those versions and that's the only version of Battlefield that you have, I would find some way to play the game at least on the PS4 or Xbox One, but especially the PC. The PC version, I mean, Battlefield is a PC shooter. That's how I feel. Battlefield is made for PC, except for the Bad Company series. Those games are clearly made for console, but when you think of games like Battlefield 3 and Battlefield 4, I mean, the PC experience is the Battlefield experience. But as far as the gameplay goes, because the game has been, it's been almost a decade at this point since this game came out. I mean, 8 years, 2 more years, and it'll be 10-year anniversary of Battlefield 4. So it's not a new game, even though it doesn't feel like this game ever died because the players just kept staying with this game. That's one thing. But the other thing is that the gameplay still holds up really well in 2021, surprisingly, because I mean, most games that came out in 2013, they play good because it was like, 8th generation PS4 and Xbox One, so they're not too bad. But I don't think any game really aged as well as Battlefield 4 when we're talking about games that came out back then. I mean, I look at Battlefield 4 and I could see this as a game that could have been released this year. As far as the visuals, as far as the gunplay, the movement, everything is smooth as hell for a game that came out in 2013. So, I mean, when you think about going back and playing older games, you're like, am I going to really like this game? Am I going to like the older mechanics? Am I going to really feel like this game really holds up to the modern gaming experience? In Battlefield 4, you just do not have to worry about that at all. That's not even a question. Like, does Battlefield 4 still hold up? It holds up really good. The players are still there. The gunplay is so satisfying, even though I guess you could say the newer Battlefield games like Battlefield 1 and Battlefield 5, as awful as Battlefield 5 is, the gunplay, everyone agrees, is a huge improvement. I think Battlefield 4 still holds its own in 2021. I mean, the destructible environments, I wish it was more destructible. I mean, you have a lot of things that you cannot blow up, which is kind of annoying, but it's still really, it's still destructible enough. It still holds true to the Battlefield formula. The maps are probably some of the best we've ever seen in the Battlefield series, especially when we're talking about Conquest. And there's really not much to complain about. There's so much variety in this game. The type of attachments that you can put, I mean, all the different attachments, all the different weapons. People were hyping up Modern Warfare because you had the gunsmith where you can customize your shit, and oh my god, you can customize your weapons, you can customize your attachments, and you can, put kits in the weapons. Like, people were hyping that shit up so much in Modern Warfare. But Battlefield 4, they did that shit first, and they still do it better than Call of Duty as far as the sheer amount of customization that you can do with your guns. It really feels like there's so much content in this game, and there's so much shit that you can do in Battlefield 4 that I can easily recommend it in 2021 without a doubt. It's still one of the greatest Battlefield games of all time, and if you haven't played it before, what the fuck are you doing? Go get it right now. You have to. There's no way that you can call yourself a Battlefield fan and not play Battlefield 4. That's just not, that you can't be a Battlefield fan and never play Battlefield 4. It's one of the greatest Battlefield games of all time. That wasn't always the case. It took a while for it to finally be a really good experience, but 8 years later, that's exactly what Battlefield 4 is. It's a really good time, and it's definitely still worth playing in 2021.